Welcome to Civics in a Year, the podcast that makes civic literacy fast, accessible, and surprisingly engaging. In just 10 minutes an episode, we'll tackle one of 250 essential questions about American democracy, how it works, why it matters, and what it means for you. Whether you're a student, a teacher, or just someone who wants to better understand your country and your rights, you're in the right place. Civics in a Year is powered by the Civic Literacy Curriculum from the Center for American Civics and is produced in partnership with the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership at Arizona State University.
In August of 1920, a single vote in the Tennessee legislature changed the Constitution of the United States of America. After decades of activism, protests, and political struggle, the 19th Amendment was ratified. And with it, the Constitution finally addressed a question that had been debated since the founding. Could the right to vote be denied on the basis of sex? The answer at last was no. But to really understand the significance of this moment, we're going to need to look at two things. One, how the amendment passed, and two, what the amendment actually says. Let's start with the text itself. The 19th Amendment reads, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation." At first glance, it's short and straightforward, but it's also very carefully written. Notice what it does not say. It does not say that all women are guaranteed the right to vote. Instead, it says that the right to vote cannot be denied on account of sex. The structure should sound familiar because it closely mirrors the language of the 15th Amendment, which we've done a podcast episode on, which says that the right to vote cannot be denied on account of race. This tells us something important. The 19th Amendment is not creating voting rights from scratch. It's limiting the reasons that states can use to deny those rights. This reflects a broader pattern within the Constitution. Originally, the Constitution left most decisions about voting qualifications to the states. Over time, amendments have been added to restrict how states can exercise that power. 15th Amendment addresses race. The 19th Amendment addresses sex. Later, the 24th Amendment is going to address poll taxes, and the 26th Amendment will address age. Each of these amendments narrows the ability of states to exclude people from voting. Now let's return to how the 19th Amendment came to be. By the early 1900s, the movement for women's suffrage had already been active for decades. Leaders like Susan B. Anthony had made constitutional arguments based on citizenship and equality. But these arguments had not succeeded in the courts, so the suffragists shifted their strategy. They began to focus on political change. Organizations like the National American Women's Suffrage Association worked state by state, building support and expanding voting rights in Western states. At the same time, more militant activists, led by Alice Paul, pushed for immediate national action. They organized protests, picketed the White House, and demanded that the federal government act. World War I became a turning point. As women contributed to the war effort, suffragists argued that it was inconsistent to deny them political rights at home. President Woodrow Wilson, who had been hesitant, eventually came to support a suffrage amendment. In 1918, he urged Congress to pass it, framing it as a necessary step for democracy. In 1919, Congress finally did just that. Both the House and the Senate passed the amendment and sent it to the states for ratification. Now the process shifted. 3/4 of the states, 36 at the time, had to approve it. Some states ratified quickly, others resisted. Opposition remained strong, especially in regions where political and social structures were deeply tied to maintaining existing power. By the summer of 1920, the amendment was one state short. Tennessee becomes the final battleground. The vote in the Tennessee legislature was extremely close. Supporters and opponents filled the chamber. Lobbying efforts intensified. Some legislators wore yellow roses to show support for suffrage. Others wore red roses to show opposition. The vote was tied. And then, at the last moment, a gentleman by the name of Harry Byrne changed his vote. He voted in favor of ratification. Later, he said that a letter from his mother encouraged him to support suffrage and do the right thing. With that vote, Tennessee became the 36th state to ratify the amendment, and the 19th Amendment became part of the Constitution. Now, going back to the text, there's one more part we need to pay attention to, that second sentence. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. This enforcement clause is critical. It means that Congress is not just recognizing a principle, it also is given the authority to act if states try to violate that principle. Again, we see similar language in the 14th and 15th Amendment. And it becomes especially important later when Congress passes laws like the Voting Rights Act to address ongoing barriers to voting. But there is a reality we need to touch on. The 19th Amendment did not immediately create equal access to voting for all women. In many parts of the country, especially in the South, Black women continued to face significant obstacles. Poll taxes, literacy tests, and intimidation were used to prevent people from voting. So while the 19th Amendment closed one door to discrimination, it did not eliminate all barriers. This brings us back to the deeper meaning of that amendment. The 19th Amendment is both a culmination and a beginning. It is a result of decades of activism, argument, and political effort. But it is also part of an ongoing process of defining and expanding democratic participation. And this is where the text matters, because the Constitution does not simply declare ideals, it structures power. By saying that voting cannot be denied on account of sex, the 19th Amendment reshaped what states are allowed to do. It changes the rules of the political system. The story of the 19th Amendment reminds us that constitutional change is both practical and philosophical. It involves votes in legislatures, close decisions, and political compromise. But it also involves big questions. Who counts as part of a political community? And what does it really mean to have a voice in democracy? The 19th Amendment does not answer those questions once and for all, but it moves the country closer to living up to its own principles. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Civics in a Year.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Civics in a Year. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who cares about a constitutional republic as much as you do. For more episodes, resources, and updates, follow us on social media or visit us at civics.asu.edu. Make sure to check out the show notes for any relevant links. Special thanks to the United States Marine Band for their performance of the Stars and Stripes Forever. Let's keep building a stronger constitutional republic, one episode at a time.